Yeah, I'm glad it kind of subverted your expectations a little bit. I don't think your original presumption in them being a harder edged version of grunge is necessarily off. I think the distinction is that they are capable of that, and from time to time do that.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. Lick, little fishy on a little dishy. My name's John. His name is Andy. The monkeys stand for honesty. Giraffes are insincere, and the elephants are kindly, but they're dumb. Orangutans are skeptical of changes in their cages, and the zookeeper is very fond of rum. More on that later. But first, we have a track to listen to, supplied by Brother Andy. What do you got?
Well, we've talked a lot on the channel about grunge music, and the big four that I've alluded to from that genre that really pioneered the sound and took it to a whole nother stratosphere over here in the States, all coming from that little pocket in Seattle. So I thought, yeah, and the first time you told me that you really weren't familiar with the other three very much. Well, I mean, you know Pearl Jam, but you have a stance on Pearl Jam, and that's fine. So I'm not obviously going to bring Pearl Jam to the table. But I am going to bring Alice in Chains to the table because I don't know if you're that familiar, if at all, with their material. And they're really important to the whole grunge movement. Whether you are a fan of theirs or not, it's really undeniable. So I thought, let me give John a song from them and see where he stands after he gives it a go. So the track by Alice in Chains that I want you to check out is one called Heaven Beside You. So please go off and give this thing a go and let me know what you think. But before you do you have are you walking into this with any outside of just knowing that they're one of the grunge pioneers from that group of bands? Is there much that you know about them?
No Alice in Chains, but I don't know why or what I know. I couldn't name you a song or an album. I definitely heard their stuff though, back in the
Cool.
day.
Okay.
Um, I have got this sort of image in my head that of the four that you mentioned. Um, I never disliked Soundgarden. I didn't really go a bundle over them like a lot of people did, though. You know, he
Yeah.
had a great voice, blah blah blah. But the music wise, didn't really take with me. Um, Alice in Chains, as I remember it, I got this impression they were slightly more towards the sort of metal side of things. They're coming from that rather than from Nirvana came from like an alternative indie sort of route
Yeah.
into correct as it were. Um, there's different ways you can get, to the sound. So that was my impression, but I have heard stuff, but I can't remember what the hell it was.
Okay, fair enough. Well, there's a chance that some of this rings familiar to you, maybe it doesn't. But regardless, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. So go off, give Heaven Beside You a listen, and let's see what you have to say, bud.
Yeah, it's not what I expected. It's very much bluesy sound, um, kind of like a mid late '80s sort of bluesy sound. Um, it's obviously not like Blues Delta from the '50s, etc. Um, yeah, it's kind of like sitting on your back porch with your feet up and swigging on some hooch and saying what's wrong with the world. Yeah, really nice sound from that first initial guitar. It's doing these notes that are kind of yawning or stretching, much like a backyard dog would do. But perhaps the one in the thumbnail would have a bit more trouble only having three legs. but I'm sure he enjoys a good stretch as well. So yes, it has a nice kind of lazy feel to it. With the drum as well. It's been very simple. Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, nice feel.
Be what you wanna be. See what you came to see. In what you wanna be. I don't like what I see. Like the coldest winter chill. Heaven beside you. Like the coldest winter chill. Heaven beside you. Like the coldest winter well. Heaven beside you.
Right. Yeah, I'm really confused. This isn't what I was expecting at all. So it goes from the sort of lazy vocals at the start. Could almost be like a kind of like a slow Jeff Healey number. And then it goes into this bit. I don't know if this is this a pre-chorus or something else. There's sort of great vocals. It's sort of very comfy, kind of middle of the road. I mean, this could be a Bryan Adams song or something, you know. You see, like the coldest winter hell, heaven beside you, and then you get this sort of altered hell with yeah, just really not what I was expecting. There you go. There you go.
And you think you have it still. Heaven inside you. So there's problems in your life. That's fucked up. I'm not mine. I'm just see-through faded, super jaded, out of my mind.
It's really odd as well. So we make the move to kind of approaching this sort of Seattle sound that I associate with them a bit more. Those vocals, that sort of tone, that disconnect, does sound a lot like Cobain. He could easily be singing the opening of Lithium or something there. Um, and then we get this nice sort of the guitar. It's this real nice, really sort of oddness to the guitar, with a sort of fuzzy buzzing background as well, which all like becomes quite interesting. And we get a sort of like guitar burst and a bit of a mini fill, expecting it to move on, and it just sort of sits there treading water for about 10-15 seconds, almost like when Wile Coyote runs off a cliff and he just keeps running for a bit. He doesn't realize there's nothing underneath it, and then he looks down, and then we drop back into that backyard, sort of very simple. So yeah, I was expecting to push on and it didn't, which is well, it's great to have your expectations confounded in a song. So yeah.
Do what you wanna do. Go out and seek your truth. When I'm down and blue, rather be me than you. Like the coldest winter chill, heaven beside you. Like the coldest winter chill, heaven beside you. Like the coldest winter well,
Yeah, so that was a bit more like I was expecting. Yeah, almost going towards that sort of it's a fine line, isn't it? In this context of where it's in, but for me, it sounded a bit almost like cock rock, sort of Van Halen noodling. It wasn't that bad, but you know, sorry, bad's a subjective term. It wasn't to that extent or extreme. It sounded great, actually. To be fair, I'm not trying to diss it at all. So it was great with the contrast, and I guess that's what they're trying to do in this song is these contrasts of different sections. Um, and then it sort of drops back into that sort of group vocal bit again, and it's quite funny to me because it sounds more like this is the more cozy side of it. They're all singing together. They could be, in my mind, wearing cardigans at this point, which is nothing wrong with that. Um, Part of the sort of noodling guitar feedbacky noise thing kind of bleeds through into this more comfortable section. I really like that. So I'm just going to whiz that back 15 or so seconds. Drumming's like relentless, striking, very little variation.
Like the coldest winter
that lead
chill, heaven beside you, hell with you. Like the coldest winter chill, heaven beside you, hell with you. Like the coldest winter will, heaven beside you, hell with you. And you know you have it still, heaven inside you. So there's problems in your life that's fucked up, but you're not blind. You're just see-through, faded, overrated, out of your mind.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed that. It certainly wasn't what I was expecting in various parts. Um, I don't know what they're aiming for, but I guess the contrast, it must be that. And if it is, then they succeeded. Definitely. How that translates into the character of the song and what they're trying to convey, I have no idea. I presume with the title "Heaven Beside You," and he's sung it a few times, that it's to do with a relationship. But is that relationship multifaceted? Do they act differently in different sections, in different locations, or different social settings? I don't know. Why you would have this different. Who knows? Well, there is one person who does. Well, he better do because he picked this song. Um, and that's Andy. So let's get back to him and find out all about it.
All right. Well, now that you are back beside me, you can tell me what you think about Heaven Beside You, the track from Alice in Chains. What do you think, buddy?
So yeah, we get this sort of bluesy guitar opening, kind of yawning and stretching, a bit like you imagine the three-legged dog in the thumbnail would do, but obviously he'd do it a bit more carefully. Um, it's also joined by another sort of noodling blues phrase from another guitar, and then a pretty sort of slack tempo beat drops from the drummer. It's very sort of downplayed. And then comes the vocalist, a little bit breathy, a little bit gravelly, a little bit grunge lighty. Um, be where you want to be, see what you came to see, be what you want to be. I don't like what I see. Interesting. So the sort of yawning that I mentioned kind of punctuates the end of each line. as he sings his first, opening four lines, which is quite nice. And the feel of the song at this stage is that of like a back porch bummer. I will elaborate. Feet up, swatting at flies, pulling from a fifth of some illicit hooch, and complaining about what's currently pissing on your fireworks. Um, is that kind of song. I mean, this could be a low key sort of. I'm thinking of like the period. This could be like a low key Jeff Healey song almost. Um, yeah, interesting. Then the next section takes a kind of, I don't know if you call it a pre-chorus, or I guess you must do. But it takes this turn that's almost, I can only describe as almost middle of the road. Very odd. And it sings like the coldest winter chill, heaven beside you, title tick, and then hell within. And it's repeated three or so times. And it's got multiple voices on the like the coldest winter chill, heaven beside you. And then the hell within is done sort of voce. I have to admit at this point I really am kind of scratching my head. As I said before, I remember the sort of Seattle sound of Alice in Chains, or what I remember as. Um, and being towards a more heavier or metal side of the grunge. And so far, this could be a Brian Adams song. It's just really surprising. Nothing against Brian Adams, Anyway, so just as I'm thinking this, here it is. More like the Seattle sound comes rolling in. Round about the 130 mark, there's this disconnected vocal style that really smacks of Cobain, no pun intended, of Cobain. In that tone, he can easily be singing, I'm so happy because today I found my friends. It's just, it always sounds like that. The music obviously isn't quite, but it's not that far off as well. But there's this really lovely bleak guitar that's that slightly, off kilter, as it were. And there's a related sort of buzz going on as well that lets us know that we're not in Kansas anymore.
Oh,
As the singer sings, he's out of my mind. He sings that he is out of my mind.
yeah.
He's out of my mind. No, um, he sings that he is out of my mind. We get this lovely squeal and like almost a mini drum fill, and then the whole guitars kick in. Um, but I'm expecting it to then kick on, and it doesn't. It kind of sits there, the whole atmosphere raised, and it holds in midair for about 15 seconds, with the drums marking time. It's kind of like when Wiley Coyote runs off the cliff and he doesn't realize he's in
Yeah,
midair,
gravity hasn't set
and
in
then
yet.
looks around,
Yeah.
and then we drop down and we're back to the backyard scene, and there's a few more rocks and that old reclining chair. Um, it's such an odd change of tone, it really is, to drop from that down to that. And they're both pleasant tones, don't get me wrong. It's just really interesting. So then we cycle again through the pre-chorus, and then we get to the chorus. And this time I catch, so there's problems with your life, that's fucked up, which is nice. This time when we exit the chorus, we don't go back to the backyard. We turn left and enter the land of rock. And that is spelt Rawk. Um, so we get these expansive guitar sounds, that notes that then morph into a bit of frenetic noodling and finger blasting. It's not quite Eddie DH, but it's along that road, that freeway. I think if this section had a passport, it would have queued into the customs lane check marked heavy. It's all good stuff. And it's marked again, really interestingly, by this really constant drum strike. There's virtually hardly any fills at all. It's just like persistent, which I found really interesting. There's not that explosiveness
Mhm.
that you would kind of almost expect. And they kind of just the reverse here. So back comes to the pre-chorus again, which the guitar, the heavy guitars are still going. So in contrast, it makes it even more contrasting. This sort of group sing. It sounds like they're all wearing cardigans at this point, with this, between the two. It's really funny. We get a couple of really pleasant sort of guitar noodles, like I was saying in a reaction we just did recently. The note bleeds into this pre-chorus and goes through it like a line buzzing through it, and I really, really like that effect. Always have done. It sounds great here. And then we go back to that heavier pre-chorus that we had right at the start of the song, with that kind of through the looking glass guitar that sounds a bit odd. And then we bizarrely end with like a nice double strum, and then the resonant fuzz just slowly fading away. So yeah, I thought this was super interesting. There's sort of three main sounds to this song. That sort of bluesy backyard sound, that sort of Brian Adams sound, whatever you want to call it, and then a sort of grungy bit. Um, and they do all three really well. The contrast is really stark, and I was wondering, I didn't catch that many words as well. I was just wondering why they do that. I presume because of the title and some of the things they said, this about a relationship. And I'm wondering, is that relationship have many sides to it, or do they act in different ways in different scenarios or geography? And that's what they're trying to express. Or does he feel more like himself when he's not with a person or with a band or whatever? These are just questions rattling through my noggin.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I found it. I did enjoy this a lot more than I thought I would for Alice in Chains. That's my presumption kicking in there. But yeah, so yeah, I was just interestingly put together as well. Really well done. So yeah, I enjoyed
Great.
this.
Great. Yeah. I'm glad it kind of subverted your expectations a little bit. I don't think your original presumption in them being a harder edged version of grunge is necessarily off. I think the distinction is that they are capable of that and from time to time do that. But they also have songs that are a bit, I don't know what the best way to describe them would be, but like uh sand it off, pulling from other genres you might not have expected. As you rightly pointed out, clearly some blues in this. But there's also clearly some blues in early Sabbath, another band that just at the name alone and what they would eventually become makes you think metal. But that's not necessarily the case. It's almost like Zeppelin, the next evolution in Dark Zeppelin sounds. These guys have a little bit of that going for them as well, where they'll take blues but then make it a little bit more bleak. But go ahead.
Yeah, just remembering back, and this is a while ago, when they sort of kicked in and the grunge kicked in. As I remember their marketing, and I couldn't tell you what it looks like now, but I do remember my reaction to it, seeing their marketing was along that sort of heavier line as well. They're sort of
Yeah.
be like t-shirts or album covers or whatever had a nod to that sort of heavier aspect.
Yeah, and I would think even like what you're alluding to, just the aesthetics and the packaging. Uh, Alice in Chains was probably the roughest around the edges group of the four, and had a bit more grit to them than maybe. Not to say that Soundgarden couldn't, because they definitely did. Kim Thiel, the electric guitarist, is definitely sort of the poster boy of that when it comes to them. Um, Nirvana was almost more artsy, in a we're not trying to give a fuck kind of way, but still it shined through. I think these guys are a little bit more gritty, and in doing so, they give you gritty blues when they're injecting it into the grunge sound or the Seattle sound. So yeah, really interesting to hear all your thoughts on this. Just based off that alone, I'm kind of interested to give you maybe something from these guys down the line that leans a little bit more hard, but not so much that you're like, ah, Jesus Christ. But just to show you another vantage point of them, or lens through which you can observe them. But yeah, Alice in Chains, American rock band formed in Seattle in 1987. Since 2006, the band's lineup has been comprised of vocalist guitarists Jerry Cantrell and William Duvall, bassist Mike Inez, and drummer Sean Kinney. Vocalist Lane Staley, whose higher registered harmonies you heard coming through during the pre-chorus and chorusy parts, and bassist Mike Starr are former members of the band. And the band took its name from Staley's previous band, Alice N Chains, sort of like the N apostrophe in Guns N' Roses. So that was the original band name that they kind of took inspiration from. Often associated with grunge music, Alice in Chains' sound and style is rooted in heavy metal. The band is known for its distinctive vocal style, which often included the harmonized vocals between Staley and Cantrell, and then later Cantrell and Duvall. Alice in Chains rose to international fame as part of the grunge movement, as we talked about, in the early 1990s, along with the other, big four bands, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden. They achieved success during the era with their first albums, Facelift in 1990, Dirt in 1992, and then their self-titled third album, Alice in Chains, in 1995, as well as an extended play that released just before the self-titled album called Jar of Flies that came out in 1994. Really good stuff on that. The band was plagued by extended inactivity from 1996 onward. We'll get into that in a little bit. Alice in Chains reunited in 2005 with Duvall joining the band in 2006 as rhythm guitarist and sharing lead vocal duties. The band has since released three more albums under this new sort of reformed band. Black Gives Way to Blue, which was released in 2009. The Devil Put Dinosaurs Here in 2013. And Rainier Frog in 2018. Since its formation, Alice in Chains has released 6 studio albums, 3 EPs, 3 live albums, 4 compilations, 2 DVDs, 43 music videos, and 32 singles. The band has sold more than 30 million records worldwide and over 20 million records in the US alone. The band had 18 top 10 songs on the Billboard mainstream rock charts and number 5 number 1 hits, and has received 11 Grammy nominations. The band was ranked 34 on VH1's 100 Greatest Artists of Hard Rock special, and as the 15th greatest live band by Hit Parader. Before the formation of Alice in Chains, Lane Staley, a drummer at the time, landed his first gig as a vocalist when he auditioned to sing for a local glam metal band known as Sleaze, after receiving some encouragement from his stepbrother, Ken Elmer. Sleaze just screams glam rock band, too, by the way. It's like, say less, I got you.
I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious, but it's a great, great name.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Right. This band would go on to take the name Alice in Chains, that I just mentioned a moment ago. Staley met guitarist Jerry Cantrell at a party in Seattle around August of '87. And a few months later, Cantrell had watched a concert of Alice in Chains in his hometown at the Tacoma Little Theater and was impressed by Staley's voice. Cantrell was homeless after being kicked out of his family's house, so Staley invited Cantrell to live with him at the rehearsal studio Music Bank. Alice in Chains soon disbanded, and Staley joined a funk band. Cantrell's band, Diamond Lie, broke up, and he wanted to form a new band. So Staley gave him the phone number of Melinda Starr, the girlfriend of drummer Sean Kinney, so that Cantrell could set up a meeting with Kinney. Kinney and his girlfriend went to the Music Bank and listened to Cantrell's demos, who mentioned that they needed a bass player to jam with them. And he had someone in mind, Mike Starr, with whom Cantrell had played in a band called Gypsy Rose. Kinney mentioned that his girlfriend was actually Mike Starr's sister and that he had been playing in bands together with Starr since they were kids. Kinney called Starr, and a few days later he started jamming with him and Cantrell at the Music Bank. Staley's funk band also required a guitarist at the time, and Staley asked Cantrell to join. Cantrell agreed on the condition that Staley join his band as well. So because Cantrell, Starr, and Kinney wanted Staley to be their lead singer, they started auditioning terrible lead singers in front of Staley to send him a hint. When they auditioned a male stripper, Staley decided to join the band. Eventually, the funk project broke up, and in 1987, Staley joined Cantrell's band on a full-time basis. 2 weeks after the band's formation, they were playing a gig at Washington State University, trying to fill in a 40-minute set with a couple of original songs, along with Hanoi Rocks and David Bowie covers. So interesting. The band played a couple of gigs in clubs around the Pacific Northwest, calling themselves different monikers, including Diamond Lie, the name of Cantrell's previous band, and Fuck, before eventually adopting the name that Staley's previous band had initially flirted with, which was Alice in Chains. Staley contacted his former bandmates and asked for permission to use the name, and ultimately they gave Staley their blessing to use it. Local promoter Randy Hauser became aware of the band at a concert and offered to pay for demo recordings. However, one day before the band was due to record at the Music Bank studio in Washington, police shut down the studio during the biggest cannabis raid in the history of the state. Now, there's some irony there because Washington was one of the first states to make recreational weed fully legal, but these were different times then. The final demo, completed in 1988, was named the Treehouse Tapes, which I also think is kind of funny to name after a place. They name it the Treehouse, and they recorded at a place that just got raided for marijuana, and tree is a, nickname for marijuana over here. So I just think that's probably where the name, or what inspired the name. So the aforementioned Treehouse Tapes found its way to music managers Kelly Curtis and Susan Silver, who also managed Seattle-based band Soundgarden. Curtis and Silver passed the demo on to Columbia Records A&R representative Nick Terzo, who set up an appointment with the label president Don Einer. Based on the Treehouse Tapes, Terzo signed Alice in Chains to Columbia in '89. Alice in Chains soon became a top priority of the label, which released the band's first official recording in July of 1990, a promotional EP called We Die Young. The EP's lead single, We Die Young, became a hit on metal radio. After its success, the label rushed Alice in Chains' debut album into production with producer Dave Jordan. Cantrell stated that the album was intended to have a moody aura that was a direct result of the brooding atmosphere and feel of Seattle. The resulting album, Facelift, was released August 21st, 1990, peaking at number 42 in the summer of '91 on the Billboard 200 chart. Facelift was not an instant success, selling 40,000 copies in the first 6 months of release, but then MTV added the track Man in the Box to regular daytime rotation. The single hit number 18 on the mainstream rock charts, with the album's follow-up single Sea of Sorrow reaching number 27, and in 6 weeks Facelift sold 400,000 copies in the US. The album was a critical success. In March of '92, the band returned to the studio with new songs written primarily on the road. The material has an overall darker feel than Facelift, with 6 of the album's 13 songs dealing with the subject of addiction. We did a lot of soul searching on this album. There's a lot of intense feelings, Cantrell said. We deal with our daily demons through music. All of the poison that builds up during the day, we cleanse when we play. On September 29th of 1992, Alice in Chains released its second album, Dirt. The album peaked at number 6 on the Billboard 200, and since its release has been certified 5 times platinum by the RIAA, making Dirt the band's highest-selling album to date. Starr left the band after the release of Dirt. Staley told Rolling Stone in '94 about Starr leaving the band, "It was just a difference in priorities. We wanted to continue intense touring and press. Mike was ready to go home." Years later, Starr claimed that he was fired due to his drug addiction. Starr was replaced by former Ozzy Osbourne bassist Mike Inez. Columbia Records released Alice in Chains' second acoustic-based EP, Jar of Flies, on January 25th, 1994. Written and recorded in 1 week, Jar of Flies debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200, becoming the first EP and first Alice in Chains release to top the charts. After the release of Jar of Flies, Staley entered rehab for heroin addiction. The band was scheduled for a tour during the summer of '94 with Metallica, Suicidal Tendencies, Danzig, and Fight, as well as a slot during Woodstock '94. But while in rehearsal for the tour, Staley began using heroin again. Staley's condition prompted the other band members to cancel all scheduled dates one day before the start of the tour, putting the band on hiatus. Alice in Chains was replaced by Candlebox on the tour. Susan Silver's management office sent out a statement saying that the decision to withdraw from the Metallica tour and Woodstock was due to health problems within the band. Shortly after withdrawing, the band broke up for 6 months, with Kinney telling Rolling Stone in '96, "Nobody was being honest with each other back then. If we had kept going, there was a good chance we would have self-destructed on the road, and we definitely didn't want that to happen in public." In April of 95, a reformed Alice in Chains entered Bad Animals Studio in Seattle, and on the 7th of 95, Columbia Records released their self-titled album, which debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 and has since been certified triple platinum. Of the album's 4 singles, Grind, Again, Over Now, and Heaven Beside You, 3 feature Cantrell on lead vocals. John Weidenhorn of Rolling Stone called the album liberating and enlightening. The songs achieve a startling, staggering, and palpable impact. Alice in Chains resurfaced on April 10th of 96 to perform for MTV Unplugged, a program featuring all acoustic set lists. The performance featured some of the band's highest charting singles, including Rooster, Down in a Hole, Heaven Beside You, No Excuses, and Wood, and introducing a new song, Killer Is Me, with Cantrell on lead vocals. The show marked Alice in Chains' only appearance as a 5-piece band, adding second guitarist Scott Olson. A live album of the performance was released in July of 96, which debuted at #3 on the Billboard 200 and was accompanied by a home video release, both of which received platinum certification by RIAA. Alice in Chains performed 4 shows on the 96-97 Alive Worldwide Tour, including the final live appearance of Lane Staley on July 3rd of 1996. In Kansas City, Missouri, shortly after the show, Staley was found unresponsive after he overdosed on heroin and was taken to a hospital. Although he recovered, the band was forced again to go on hiatus. Although Alice in Chains never officially disbanded, Staley became a recluse, rarely leaving his Seattle condominium, following the death of his ex-fiancée, Demery Parrott, on October 29, 1996. Drugs worked for me for years, Staley told Rolling Stone in February of 96, and now they're turning against me. Now I'm walking through hell, and this sucks. I didn't want my fans to think that heroin was cool, but then I've had fans come up to me and give me the thumbs up, telling me they're high, and that's exactly what I didn't want to happen. After a decade of battling drug addiction, Lane Staley was found dead in his condominium on April 19th, 2002. The autopsy and toxicology report revealed that he died from a mixture of heroin and cocaine, known as a speedball. The autopsy concluded that Staley died on April 5th, 2 weeks before his body was found. Cantrell dedicated his 2002 solo album, Degradation Trip, released 2 months after Staley's death, to his memory. And Mike Starr later claimed on Celebrity Rehab that he was the last person to see Staley alive, and admitted to feeling guilty about not calling 911 after Staley had warned him against it. I wish I hadn't been high on benzodiazepine that night. I wouldn't have walked out the door, Starr said. That's fucking sucks, man. That's awful. The track I had you listen to today, as mentioned, features on their self-titled third studio album. I should also mention, I turned you on to A Perfect Circle. You went out and grabbed 13th Step. The song The Outsider on that album is about Lane Staley, and how others around him tried to grapple with what he was going through and just ended up kind of, in a way, resenting him for it because of their lack of understanding of the powers of addiction. So if you ever go back and listen to that song, it's Maynard talking about Lane Staley. Recorded at Seattle's Bad Animal Studio with Toby Wright, the album's songs focused on heavy emotional content and subject matter such as drug addiction, depression, spirituality, broken relationships, and the internal tensions within the band that were being fueled by Staley's substance abuse. The album's music relies less on heavy metal riffs, as you were quick to notice, and more on melody and texturally varied arrangements, some integrating the acoustic moods of their EPs, while others introduce late 1960s and early 70s rock influences. Instead of a 12-hour standard weekday, Wright established a work schedule which accommodated the band members whenever the group was comfortable in order to maximize creative efforts. Staley's addiction often led to him being late or absent for recording sessions and rehearsal sessions. So Wright's assistant, Sam Hofstede, was given a pager to notify him when Staley was available to work, regardless of time of day. On one occasion, Wright summoned Hofstede to the studio at 1 in the morning after Staley had arrived. If Staley had previously tried to hide his drug use from those around him, it became far less subtle during the recording of this album. Hofstede recalled, "It seemed apparent to me he was using, because when you go to lock yourself in the bathroom for a while, it's not because you really like the bathroom." The album's guitar sound is more natural than on previous albums. Cantrell used fewer tracks and effects and significantly shortened and simplified his solos, which were often improvised in the studio rather than written in advance. Guitarists who influenced his playing on the album include Brian May, Lindsey Buckingham, Jimi Hendrix, uh, Tony Iommi, Jimmy Page, Robin Trower, Davy Johnson, and David Gilmour. Cantrell sang lead vocals on three songs: Grind, Heaven Beside You, and Over Now, all of which he also wrote lyrics to. He originally did not wish to contribute lead vocals as much as he did, but Staley and the others insisted he sing on these tracks. Alice in Chains was recognized by is recognized by some for being a musical the album, I should say, Alice in Chains, is recognized by some for being a musical progression for the band, with certain critics specifically noting a breakaway from the grunge label that had been assigned to the group. In contrast to their previous albums, Perelis remarked in his review for the New York Times that Chains distanced itself from the raw distortions associated with grunge, instead sounding cleanly delineated and meticulously layered. John Weidenhorn of Rolling Stone highlighted heavy influence from Jar of Flies and praised the lyrical honesty throughout the album, noting that the songs achieved a startling, staggering, and palpable impact. He concluded that the album was a musical rebirth for the band. Conversely, Billboard's Paul Verna wrote the album returns to the band's already well-known grunge sound and would thus be a hit with the band's core fans. However, he still acknowledged the band's more acoustic arrangements present on the album, likening them to Jar of Flies and REM. People enthusiastically praised Staley and Cantrell's performances and wrote that the eerily compelling music would fit well in a horror film, especially one by Wes Craven or Clive Barker. Greg Kot of the Chicago Tribune opined the acoustic guitars, buried spoken vocals, a mix that ranges from stripped down clarity to white noise chaos, and the band's sneaky way with a melody mark Alice in Chains as its most accomplished record, noting that the callbacks to Jar of Flies enhanced the finished product. The Toronto Sun's Peter Howell likewise praised the mix of styles, hailing the effort as the most welcome recovery from the band's personal turmoil. So, Heaven Beside You peaked at number 52 on the Billboard Hot 100 airplay charts, making it Alice in Chains' second highest charting single after No Excuses. Also, the track was written about Cantrell's then girlfriend, Courtney Clark. Cantrell sings lead vocals with Staley doing harmonies during the chorus, and the song spent 26 weeks on Billboard's mainstream rock tracks chart and peaked at number 3. Let's get into these lyrics, shall we? Be what you want to be. See what you want to see. Been what you want to be. I don't like what I see. Like the coldest winter chill, heaven beside you, hell within. Like the coldest winter chill, heaven beside you, hell within. Like the coldest winter will, heaven beside you, hell within. And you think you have it still, heaven inside you. So there's a problem in your life. That's fucked up, and I'm not blind. I'm just see-through, faded, super jaded, and out of my mind. Do what you want to do. Go out and seek your truth. When I'm down and blue, rather be me than you. Like the coldest winter chill, heaven beside you, hell within. Like the coldest winter chill, heaven beside you, hell within. Like the coldest winter will, heaven beside you, hell within. And you wish you had it still, heaven inside you. So there's a problem in your life. That's fucked up, and I'm fine. I'm just see-through faded, super jaded, out of my mind. Like the coldest winter chill, heaven beside you, hell within. Like the coldest winter chill, heaven beside you, hell within. Like the coldest winter will, heaven beside you, hell within. And you know you will have it still, heaven inside you. So there's problems in your life. That's fucked up. But you're not blind. You're just see-through, faded, overrated, and out of your mind. All right, so those are the lyrics. I have here Cantrell was unable to remain faithful to the woman whom he described as the most beautiful girl I ever seen in my life, and added, I still love her, but I'm too much of a fucking wolf. Kill, attack, move on. It's so tough when you're so used to being hard. You can't tell an oak to be a pine. In the liner notes of the 1999's Music Bank box set collection, Jerry Cantrell said of the song, "Another attempt to reconcile the fact that my life and the paths are tearing me apart from the person I love. All the things I write about her are a way for me to speak to her, express things I could never express." AllMusic's Steve Huey regarded the song among the band's best work. Ned Raggett of AllMusic said that the song continued in the vein of Jar of Flies with its lead acoustic riff and generally low-key presentation, and added that Cantrell's electric work is some of his best, moving beyond the admittedly powerful blasts of feedback he was known for to find a new, textured approach that balanced volume with a richer, less oppressive feel. So, there you have it, John. That is your first introduction to Alice in Chains formally on the channel, but go ahead.
So, 3 points struck me as you were going through all that.
Yeah.
One, those MTV Unplugged were real money makers, weren't
Oh
they?
my
Every
God. Yeah.
single band that was
And
on
they were
there, they're
great.
huge. I mean, like Clapton rejuvenated his career as well, and that was a
Yeah.
massive seller. Obviously, Nirvana and plenty of others. So that was one thing. And secondly, I was just thinking, but I don't know why this hasn't occurred to me before, but it was just then going through all their sort of various tales of woe and the drug addictions, etc. I'm thinking all these pasty white boys from the 90s, there was this heroin chic and all that. I mean, they're real compared to the jazz musicians of the 50s, they're real pussies, aren't they? They carried on, never missed a fucking show, and they were dosed up to their eyeballs. I mean, it's amazing, really, isn't it?
I, I'm inclined to think that the heroin got a bit dirtier between the days of jazz club heroin use and, Seattle mid 90s, early 90s heroin. But yeah, point well made. You're
uh,
right.
you're talking about the golden age of heroin, yes, I
Yeah,
remember.
right. Yeah, that primo, before the stuff became tainted. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the third thing is him talking all that bullshit there about being a fucking wolf and oak and all that nonsense.
Yeah,
As you know, bullies are not strong; they're weak, and people, and that's a character defect. And people who stray like that, they're not wolves and they're not oaks. They're fucking balsa wood, is what they are.
yeah, yeah.
They're too weak, and hence, a proclivity for addiction and stuff like that. It's a
Absolutely.
weakness. But anyway, nonsense.
No, no, I would agree. Yeah, it's a mask, hiding what you noted, their weaknesses. So, I think that's even that quote is riddled with cope and how to, explain away things. But yeah, they are an interesting band, and I am definitely
Yeah.
looking forward to maybe giving you some stuff from one of their first two albums, possibly, or maybe even something from Jars of Flies, because that's a really, really good album as well. But yeah, thanks for giving this a go, John. I appreciate your time, buddy. Um,
No
guys,
problemo.
guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of this track by Alice in Chains. If there's other stuff that John should check out by them, as I just alluded to, I'll probably have him check out something. So if you have any suggestions, feel free to drop them down in the comments field below, and we will add them to the list. Also, if you haven't done so, please like, share, and/or subscribe. Any and all of those things go a long way in helping us at the channel and only cost you a couple clicks. So thank you so much in advance for that. And hopefully, John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.